Hey guys, I'm JC and today we're playing Jinnie Fay, Jetmir second. This is a deck that looks to take tokens of all types, convert them to cats and dogs, and then uses those bodies for value as well as a way of closing out the game. If this seems like your kind of deck, then make sure to stop by the channel where we have a deck tech as well as other gameplay videos showing how the deck was built as well as how it plays out. In addition, we also have a Discord group with a channel dedicated specifically to Jinnie Fay, so if you'd like to discuss the deck more, make sure to check out the link in the description below. Let's see if we can assemble an army of cats and dogs and unleash them upon our opponents. Alrighty guys, let's see who we're playing today. We have the First Sliver, we have Kalamax the Stormsire, and to round it out we have Yasharn Implacable Earth. Right, if we take a look at our opening hand, we're mulliganing it straight away. One land just isn't good enough. And this second hand looks much better. We have a turn 1 mana dork, we have card draw, we have interaction, and we also have protection as well as a way of quickly filling our board. So we'll keep this. And Yasharn gets the game going by playing a land for turn. And then they cast a turn 1 Elvish Mystic. Then they pass the turn to us. We draw a Krenko for turn. Let's start by playing our Temple Garden. We'll lose the 2 life so it comes into play untapped. We'll cast an elf of our own. Then we'll pass it to the Sliver player. The First Sliver just plays a tap land for turn, and then they pass it over. Kalamax plays a tap land for turn, and when it ETBs they gain 1 life. And that's it for them. Yasharn plays a land, and then they cast a Nature's Law. Then they follow that up with a Rampant Growth. So big ramp turn for the Yasharn player, and then they pass the turn. We draw an Oran Frostfang for turn. Right, so we have a few choices here. We could try to get down our Krenko. We could also get down our Elemental Bond to start getting card draw online as early as possible. And then we also have the option of casting our Commander. Well, at the moment, while our opponents, at least 2 of them, don't have creatures down on board, we may have some time to be able to get our Krenko and use it. So I think what we'll do is we'll start by playing our Plains for turn, and then we'll get down our Elemental Bond. Because just in case a board wipe does happen, at least we'll draw a few cards in the turns after this when we start playing some of our creatures, and we can hopefully rebuild if that happens. So from here, we'll just pass it over. The First Sliver plays a tap land for turn, and when it ETBs, it allows them to scry 1. And that's it for them. Kalamax plays a land, and then they cast a Felwar Stone. And that's going to be it for them. Yasharn starts their turn by casting their commander. When Yasharn ETBs, search your library for a basic forest and a basic plains card, reveal those cards, put them into your hand, then shuffle, and players can't pay life or sacrifice non-land permanents to cast spells or activate abilities. So when it ETBs, they'll go fetch up those lands. They play a land for turn, and then they cast a Collector Oof. Activated abilities of artifacts can't be activated. Well, not a problem for us, but I'm sure the Kalamax player doesn't like to see that. And then they pass the turn. We draw Anointed Procession for turn. Well, I think now that we know that the Kalamax player is very unlikely to be able to get their commander down next turn, so we'll start by playing our land for turn. Unfortunately, we can't crack it thanks to Yasharn. So our best option at the moment is to actually cast our commander here, and at least hopefully draw some more cards, hopefully some lands that we can actually use. Cast Jinnie Fay. When she ETBs, that'll trigger our Elemental Bond, so we'll draw a card. We get ourselves a Gilded Goose. And that is going to be it for us. The First Sliver plays a land. And then they cast a Home in Sliver. Each Sliver card in each player's hand has Sliver Cycle in 3, and it has Sliver Cycle in 3 itself. And then they pass the turn. Kalamax plays a tap land for turn. When it ETBs, they can scry 1. But that is going to be it for them. Yasharn plays a land. And then they cast a Palace Jailer. When it ETBs, you become the monarch, and when it ETBs, exile target creature an opponent controls until an opponent becomes the monarch. I think we're going to see our Jinnie Fay go down here, and that is the case. We will put Jinnie back into the command zone. Then they follow up by casting a Knight of Autumn. When it ETBs, choose 1, put 2/1/1 counters on Knight of Autumn, destroy target artifact or enchantment, or you gain 4 life. This may hit our Elemental Bond here, so this is probably going to set us pretty far back if that's the case, especially with no lands in hand at the moment. And as we predicted, they do target our Elemental Bond. So that goes down. Now they move to combat. Yasharn swings towards the Sliver player. They take the damage, going down to 36. And that is going to be it for their turn. On their end step, they also draw a card. We draw a Shamanic Revelation for turn. We don't have many options here. The only one we're going to go for is casting our Gilded Goose. When it ETBs, it will make a food token. And unfortunately, we'll have to pass the turn from here. The First Sliver plays a land. And then they cast a Reflex Sliver. All Sliver creatures have haste. Now they move to combat, but they pass through combat, and that is going to be it for them. Kalamax quickly starts their turn by casting a Blasphemous Act, which is going to deal 13 damage to each creature. That goes through. So while that did hurt us, at least it does slow down the Yasharn player, even if it is only going to be for a turn or two. And now they cast a Gutter Snipe. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Gutter Snipe deals 2 damage to each opponent. Kalamax's end step, we are going to crack our Verdant Catacombs before the Yasharn comes back down. We'll put our Jetmir's Garden into play tapped. And now we'll go to the Yasharn player's turn. They start by playing a land. And then they cast a Bane of Progress. When Bane of Progress ETBs, destroy all artifacts and enchantments, put a 1/1 counter of Bane of Progress for each permanent destroyed this way. Well, it's not really going to take out much at the moment. It's going to take out the Felwar Stone and our food token. So I'm not too sure if they should have cast that now or maybe waited another couple of turns to get full value out of it. But maybe they're really adamant on slowing down the Kalamax player. So it comes in as a 4/4. Now they move to their end step. Monarchy does trigger, so they'll draw a card. And then they pass the turn. We draw a Bloom Tender for turn. Well, we have 2 choices here. We can try to get down our Krenko and start getting it bigger and making bodies, while the board isn't too big and filled with creatures where that's not really going to be an option. Or, of course, we could try to cast our Bloom Tender as well to try to get up on some mana. But if we do play our Bloom Tender, all we're going to possibly be able to do next turn is really cast our Anointed Procession or just Krenko anyway. We can't get down Jinnie Fay, so that's probably not worthwhile unless, of course, we draw a land, and we just can't bank on that. So I think I'm going to go to the Krenko play here. That way, if we do get the chance to go wide, we might be able to steal the Monarchy off the Yasharn player and draw a few more cards. But that is going to be it for us. First Sliver plays a tap land for turn, a Vivid Creek. Now they cast a Clot Sliver. All Slivers have pay 2, regenerate this permanent. But that's going to be it for their turn. Kalamax plays a land. And now they cast Fact or Fiction. That does trigger their Gutter Snipe, so each opponent's going to take 2 damage. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library, and opponent separates those cards into 2 piles, put 1 pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Okay, which player do they choose here? And it looks like they picked the Yasharn player. Alright, so they're separating the land and the Springleaf Drum. Right, if they're leaving the pile like that, I'm sure the Kalamax player is definitely going to take the Twinning Staff pile. And that's exactly what they take. Now they move to combat, they decide not to attack, and then they pass the turn. Yasharn starts by casting an Enlightened Tutor in their upkeep. Search your library for an artifact or enchantment card, reveal it, then shuffle and put that card on top. They find themselves an Esper Sentinel. They play that Esper Sentinel for turn. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card unless that player pays X, where X is Esper Sentinel's power. They play a land for turn. And now they recast their commander. When it ETBs, they can put up to 2 lands into their hand. They get themselves a forest and a plains. Now they move to combat, but they pass through combat. On their end step, they draw a card thanks to Monarchy, and then they pass the turn to us. We draw a Pest Infestation for turn. Would have been really nice to have seen a land there. So let's begin by playing our Bloom Tender, because we really need access to the mana. We're going to fall too far behind otherwise. Then we'll move to combat. We'll send Krenko towards the Sliver player. That triggers Krenko. So now we're going to make 2 Goblin tokens. Krenko also becomes a 2/3. The first Sliver just blocks with their Sliver. Then they regenerate it. Now they'll just bounce off each other, and then we'll pass the turn. The first Sliver starts their turn by casting their commander, which does trigger Cascade. It has Cascade, and Sliver spells you cast have Cascade. In their Cascade trigger, they find a Spine Sliver. Whenever a Sliver becomes blocked, that Sliver gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature blocking it. And then their commander resolves. And that's going to be it for them. Kalamax starts their turn by casting a Twinning Staff. That triggers Esper Sentinel. But they don't pay. If you would copy a spell 1 or more times, instead copy it that many times plus an additional time, you may choose new targets for the additional copy, and you can pay 7 and tap it to copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Next, they cast a Ponder, which triggers their Gutter Snipe. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. You may shuffle and draw a card. But after that, they're just going to pass the turn. Yasharn plays a land, a Bonder's Enclave. Now they use the Bonder's Enclave straight away to draw a card. After that, they move to combat. They decide not to attack. Now in their second main phase, they cast a Court of Calling for X equals 5, convoke and search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. They get themselves a Solitude. When it ETBs, exile up to 1 other target creature. That creature's controller gains life equal to its power. And it looks like they're targeting the first Sliver with that. Probably worried about the first Sliver getting a little too out of hand, which you can start to snowball pretty quickly, that's for sure. So we're happy to see that happen, and they move to their end step. Monarchy triggers, they get to draw a card, and then they pass the turn. We draw a Xenagos for turn. Well, it wasn't a land, but that is a nice thing to see. It can generate us a lot of mana. The problem is, we do have a lot of creatures on board that are probably going to try to swing at Xenagos. Luckily, none of them have flying at the moment. So we will start by casting Xenagos. It does trigger Esper Sentinel, but we won't pay, because we do want to try to resolve our Frostfang this turn. That goes through. Now we're going to uptick Xenagos. We'll add 4 green mana. Now we'll cast our Frostfang. Now we'll move to combat. We'll send all the creatures we can at the Yasharn player, because they're currently the player that's most ahead. That will trigger Krenko. It'll become a 3/4 and make us 3 goblins. Very good blockers for Xenagos. They decide not to block, so we will take the Monarchy from them. Now we'll also draw some cards from our Frostfang, a Queen Elenil, a land thankfully, and then another land. So in our second main phase we'll play our land for turn, and from here we'll just pass the turn. On our end step, Monarchy does trigger, we'll get to draw a card. We draw a Takasia's Welcome. More card draw is always good. Now we will have to go to discard here. And at the moment I think we can afford to discard our Kasali Slingers, because we do have Artifact and Enchantment interaction in the form of Pest Infestation, and that importantly does make us bodies as well. So in case a board wipe comes down and we have a lot of mana, we can re-establish a board presence again pretty quickly. Now the first sliver starts by playing a land. And now they recast their commander once again. That triggers Cascade. They get into a Shadow Sliver. All sliver creatures have Shadow. And then their commander resolves. Now they move to combat. They send their sliver towards our Xenagos. In fact, both of them. Luckily it is only 3 power, so Xenagos will survive. No, instead they actually change, so the 1/1's actually coming towards our face. So when they do connect with combat damage, that does trigger Monarchy, so they'll become the new Monarch. Now they move to their end step, and Monarchy triggers, so they get to draw a card. And that is going to be it for their turn. Kalamax starts by casting a third Path Iconoclast. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token. Now they also cast a Crop Rotation. That triggers Esper Sentinel, third Path Iconoclast, as well as Guttersnipe. They do pay for Esper Sentinel. Now they make the soldier token. Each opponent's going to take 2 damage. And Crop Rotation says, as an additional cost to cast this spell, sack a land, search your library for a land card, put that card onto the battlefield, and shuffle. They find themselves a Gruul Turf, so when it ETBs, they will have to bounce a land back to their hand. And that is going to be it for them. Yasharn plays a land. And now they cast a Walking Ballista, X equals 4. It ETBs with 4 1/1 counters on it. You can pay 4 to put a 1/1 counter on Walking Ballista, and you can remove a 1/1 counter from it to deal 1 damage to any target. Unfortunately for us, I think that means our Xenagos is going to go down, which I was really looking forward to using all of that mana from the bodies that Krenko has been generating us. And after that, they cast a Spirit of the Labyrinth, something we don't want to see. Each player can't draw more than 1 card each turn. The Yasharn player has certainly shown that they're probably the biggest threat to us at the moment, so we'll have to try to take care of them as soon as we can. Then they start by activating their Walking Ballista, actually targeting our Bloom Tender, so that will go down. Next, they activate it once again, targeting Xenagos. And then they do it one more time, taking him down. Now they move to combat, but they decide not to attack. And that is going to be it for their turn. We draw a Chroma's Will for turn. Okay, well there is a way to take out at least probably 1 player, though we're not really set up to do it at the moment. Hopefully we can take out more than 1 when we do. So we'll start by playing our Forest for turn. Next we'll recast Jinnie Fay. Now we'll move to combat. We'll send Krenko towards Kalamax. It's the only real good attack we can make. That triggers Krenko. But instead of making goblins now, we're going to make dogs. So now we make 4 3/1 Vigilant Dogs. Let's see if they decide to block. They don't. They just take the damage. Now when damage goes through, that will trigger Frostfang, but we won't draw. And then we'll pass the turn from here. On our end step, Yasharn finally uses the last counter on their Walking Ballista, and they're actually targeting the Shadow Sliver here. So they don't like the idea of the Sliver player having unblockable on their creatures. Now we move to the first Sliver player's turn. They start by playing a land. Now they cast a Shifting Sliver, basically a replacement of the creature they just lost. Slivers can't be blocked except by Slivers. Now that does trigger Cascade. And they also find themselves a Heart Sliver. All Sliver creatures have haste. That triggers Cascade once again. And then they find themselves a Striking Sliver. Sliver creatures you control have first strike. Now that also triggers Cascade once again, but we'll see if they have a 0 drop in their deck. Otherwise that should end the chain right there. And it seems like they don't. A good number of Slivers to come down this turn. Now they move to combat, but they decide not to attack. Now they just move to their end step, Monarchy triggers, they get to draw a card, and then they pass the turn. Kalamax plays a land, and now they finally get to cast their commander. Whenever you cast your first instant spell each turn, if Kalamax is tapped, copy that spell, you may choose new targets for the copy, and whenever you copy an instant spell, put a 1/1 counter on Kalamax. Now they move to combat, but very unlikely they actually swing in here. And they don't, they just pass right through combat. And then they pass the turn. Yasharn starts their turn by activating their Bonder's Enclave to draw a card. They might be digging for an answer to this board state. They play a land for turn. Now they cast a Lauren of the Third Path. It has Vigilance. When it ETBs, destroy up to one target artifact or enchantment and tap. You and target opponent each draw a card. When that ETBs, they target the Twinning Staff. And after that, they cast a Draneth Magistrate. Your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. Well, thankfully we've got Jinnie Fay down at the moment. Let's just hope we can keep her out here. Now they move to combat. Do they attack? I don't think they do, unless of course they want to attack the Kalamax player, which I can't imagine they would want to. No, they don't. And they are just going to pass the turn from there. We draw an Esper Sentinel for turn. Well, we would like starting to draw some more cards for turn. So I think it's now that we actually get rid of that Spirit of the Labyrinth here and actually make some bodies along the way. So let's cast our Pest Infestation. We'll target the Spirit. And we'll also target the Esper Sentinel. Casting that spell triggers their Esper Sentinel, but we won't be able to pay. That goes through. We're going to replace the Pest tokens with dogs. So now our army grows ever bigger. Now let's move to combat. We'll send all the dogs we can towards Yasharn. Then we'll send Krenko once again at Kalamax. That triggers Krenko. We'll make yet more dogs. Now let's see if our opponents block here. It looks like they use Yasharn to block one dog. They put their Bane of Progress in front of another. And yep, it looks like they're actually going all in with their creatures, so they don't want us drawing any cards here. We're definitely happy with that. Makes it a lot more easier to swing in next turn if we can keep our board state. Luckily, we still get through with Krenko, so we'll be able to draw a card from that. Let's hope we get a land here. And we do, thankfully. And that actually causes the Yasharn player to scoop it up. Alright, well, that's one less opponent we have to deal with. So in our second main phase, let's play our Forest for turn. And then we'll just pass the turn over. The first sliver starts by casting a Siphon Sliver. That triggers Cascade. Sliver creatures you control have lifelink. Okay, well that's not good news for us. That makes our Chrome as well a lot less effective. Let's see what they cascade into. And they get a Venom Sliver. Sliver creatures you control have Death Touch. That triggers Cascade once again. And then they get a Virulent Sliver. All Sliver creatures have Poisonous 1, which currently they're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That also triggers Cascade. So they should only have 9 creatures that come down here, but if they cast one more Sliver, they will basically be able to take out a player here, and best guess it's probably going to be us. We just have to really keep our fingers crossed that they don't decide to go all in towards us. After that, they cast a Winged Sliver. All Sliver creatures have flying. That triggers Cascade. And they get themselves a Gale Rider Sliver. Sliver creatures you control have flying. That triggers Cascade once again, but they won't get anything off it. So now is the moment of truth. Do we live or die here? They move to combat. It looks like they are starting to send everything in towards us. So unfortunately, I think that's going to be us done for this game. We got close, but just not close enough. We won't be able to block, so we'll have to take all the damage. And that is us taken out, guys. Now the Sliver player just moves straight to their end step, and they get to draw a card thanks to Monarchy. Then we move to the Kalamax player's turn. Let's see if they have an answer to this board state. And it looks like they don't. They just decide to concede the game straight away. Well, that is the game done there, guys. Let's go to the review and discuss what happened. So all things considered, I think we had a really good game here and came close to dominating at the end despite all the interaction we ran into. In the early game, we lost our commander, card draw enchantment, and then entire board within the first 4 turns, which can be hard to come back from when we have no lands in hand. Then just when we started getting back on our feet with Xenagos for mana and Frostfang for card draw, the Yasharn player shut down both of those options, setting us back once again. But where the Yasharn player really set us back was when they scooped after they cast their Draneth Magistrate and we attacked them. Now I'm not too sure if it was a shame scoop due to our creatures having Death Touch, or it was more a salty scoop just due to us attacking them, but either way, as soon as we lost that Draneth Magistrate, that allowed the Sliver player to storm off and then take us out. Now, due to our board state and the fact we had a Chrome as well in hand, had that Draneth Magistrate sticked around, I think the outcome of this game would have been very different. Well, that's it from me today. If you haven't done so already, make sure to check out our playlists on the channel, where each commander will have their deck tech and gameplay videos all located in one convenient place. Until next time, guys.